Now, if you've been with me for a while, you know that I think it is so important to make decisions when things are happening. You can't decide now that you don't want an epidural because you aren't in labor and you don't know the circumstances or the situation. So today I want to run through some real life examples that I saw in my 20 years in labor and delivery to give you some ideas about how you can make the choice for which pain management is best for you. And I'm here to tell you, I see so many people online 20 weeks of pregnancy saying, I'm not going to get an epidural during my labor. And then I see them have their baby and they're like, turns out I got an epidural. And I'm like, that is awesome. I'm glad that you made the best choice for you when you were in labor. Please don't stress out about deciding if you're going to get an epidural now or not. Take those minutes and use it to get educated about the epidural, because I'm here to tell you that we cannot educate you when you're in the labor room in a ton of pain. So getting educated in advance about the epidural is super important. And quick reminder before we jump in, I believe that everyone needs some natural pain management techniques to use, and they also need to know about the epidural. So if you're looking for natural pain management techniques to use, and honestly, the epidural has a whole chapter on the epidural, I have a birth class that I recommend. I'm going to link it down in the description.
Attention, attention. Paging the pregnancy nurse. She is a nurse, but not your nurse. Thank you.
The first one we're going to meet is Becky. Now, Becky labored at home really well. She had a very supportive partner. She knew that the hospital was close by, which I know for a lot of you is not the case. But if you have a hospital close by, that can feel really supportive because you know you can get to the hospital really quickly. And when she goes into labor and delivery, her cervix, back there, like our uterus, is 7 centimeters. And she's like, yes, we are doing so good. But Becky had sort of planned on getting an epidural. She wasn't planning on doing this naturally. However, even in the hospital, she had a very supportive team with a supportive partner, a supportive provider. She had great nurses, and she just felt like she could continue to keep doing it. Now, things did feel chaotic for Becky. There were points in times where she started to doubt if she really could do it. But again, that supportive partner was really helpful in this instance. And her labor continued to progress very quickly. When she got to the hospital, things did not slow down. Now, about an hour into this, she starts to tell her labor nurse, I cannot do this. Like, I need the epidural. I am done. And that labor nurse says, hey, can I check your cervix really quick? And they find out that Becky is in transition. And Becky knows, because she watched my stages of labor video, I'll link it down below, that when you get to transition, which is that period right before you're able to push, that you are going to have a lot of self-doubt. It feels like everything is falling in and things are falling apart. And she knew if she could just get through that transition, that things would feel better when she started to push. You'll note that Becky had a lot of education, Becky and her partner. So I love that about this Becky. She actually asked for a little bit of nitrous, which her hospital had to help her get through those last few minutes before she was able to start pushing out her baby. Once that cervix was gone, she started to push and had her baby epidural free, even though Becky had planned on having an epidural. Because things progressed very quickly, she felt very supportive and felt like she could do it. She did it. And as a side note, I'm not here to say that one way of having a baby is better than another way of having a baby. These are just different choices that we might make based on different labors. Everybody's labor is different. Next, we're going to talk about Sandra. She has been laboring at home for a long time. She gets to the hospital and she is 4 centimeters, but she is in a ton of pain. She's absolutely miserable. Now, she has practiced her natural pain management techniques throughout labor, but they just are not helping her cope anymore. She's been miserable for so long. She just doesn't know how long she's going to be able to do it. She's still hoping to be able to avoid the epidural. She's using those natural pain management techniques, but about an hour, she starts to really get overwhelmed with the pain. Her nurse checks her. She's 5 centimeters. And her partner starts to notice that she's really just not coping with it. She's starting to freak out with the pain. And I actually have a whole video about how your stress can combine to make labor actually worse for you, but also actually worse for a baby. And I'll link that video down below. Now, her partner knows that he should be watching out for when she's no longer coping well with the labor pains. And he says, hey, I think it's time to get the epidural. And they start to have that conversation. She ultimately ends up getting the epidural and it helps her to relax, She gets a nap in, then she's able to push her baby out just fine. Again, the outcome between Becky and Sandra's birth is pretty much the same. They both end up with a baby. So I just want you guys to remember that everybody has different choices. Everybody's labor looks a little bit different. Next, we're going to move on to Jennifer. She has actually been in the hospital a long time. Maybe she got induced or she came into the hospital in early labor and they kept her. Either way, she's been in the hospital for a long time, and this is not unusual. She feels like she is doing great with her labor pain management and that she's coping really well. She feels very positive. And she practiced all these skills in advance. I think the most important thing is to learn those natural pain management techniques, but to also practice them. You get a tough ligament pain, use those breathing techniques. You get a son of a gun Braxton Hicks contraction, use those natural breathing techniques. Practice it throughout your pregnancy. It can be so helpful. And it makes those miserable parts of pregnancy a little bit easier. Jennifer is also incorporating movement really well into this birth. She is moving around the room and doing really well with that. But she is not progressing. She's just noticing that her cervix is not dilating. She is having good contractions, but the baby just is not descending well into the birth canal. She's noticing that she's starting to get tired. Remember, she's been at the hospital for quite a long time of her labor. She's not being able to get any rest. And she's just noticing she's starting to get overwhelmed about how tired she is. She's able to cope with the pain, but is getting really, really tired. So she gets an epidural and she gets a 5-star nap. And when her nurse checks her after her nap, she notices she's dilated very quickly and she's ready to have her baby. Because she was able to fill up her gas tank with some rest and relax, I actually have a whole video on the little known benefits of the epidural that talks about more stuff like this. I'm going to link it down below. But because of the epidural, Becky feels a little more rested and is easily able to push out her baby and enjoys her hospital stay. Next, we move on to Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth has a scheduled induction for high blood pressure in the hospital. This is a very common thing that ends up happening. So I want you guys to pay attention to this. There's so many people who think that they will never get induced, but end up having this high blood pressure or preeclampsia situation at the end of their pregnancy. So listen in. She gets some Cytotec and a Foley bulb, and she's just miserable with the Foley bulb. She gets it overnight, but she's really not able to sleep because of that Foley bulb. Side note, some people don't mind that Foley bulb at all, and some people absolutely hate it. And I'm here to tell you that if you're just absolutely hating it, be sure and let your healthcare team know, because they'll need to weigh like you hating it and the work that it's doing. Finally, the Foley bulb comes out and they start Pitocin, and those contractions are just miserable. Again, she hasn't slept very well at night, and those Pitocin contractions just feel like they are hitting her all of the time. Now, Elizabeth had really hoped to go without an epidural. That had been her plan all along, but she's noticing that she's tired, she's miserable, she's not coping with the pain, and she knows that she has more labor ahead of her that will involve our arch nemesis sometimes, Pitocin. I love Pitocin, but it can feel like your evil villain in the story sometimes with an induction because of how it makes your uterus contract. And I actually have a whole video on if inductions are more painful. I'm going to link that one down below as well. So Elizabeth ends up getting the epidural, right? And it's in, she gets a great nap, they turn it down, she incorporates movement into her birth, and soon enough, she's able to push and again, has her baby in the bed after delivery. I just want to remind you that in each of these scenarios, each mom ends up having her baby in the bed with her after delivery. Each mom had a very different labor, and each mom made the choice that was best for them while they were in labor. And that is what I want for you. I don't want you to make the choice that I'm just not going to get an epidural when you're 20 weeks pregnant. Make sure that you're making the best choice for you at the time and getting educated on both natural pain management techniques and the epidural. And of course, I have a whole birth class that does just that. It has both an epidural section and a natural pain management technique because you need both of them. I'll link it down below. Now, little known fact, you can customize your epidural. There's different choices that you can make about how your epidural is tailored just to you. I'm going to link that video up above and down below. Thanks for joining us here on The Pregnancy Nurse, where we get you prepared, not scared for your upcoming hospital birth.